Welcome to the channel Mirelle Tales. Before we start, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. Now, let's get into today's story.
Today, either you die, or I do. Give me your address right now, I'm on my way. On the other end of the phone, my mother-in-law's voice filled with a deranged fury echoed in my ears. She had completely lost her mind over a simple sentence that I wouldn't be showing up for Christmas, and that I also wouldn't be attending the memorial brunch for her grandfather's passing. Faced with her hysterical screams, I had to make a superhuman effort not to laugh. Because today, finally, after a lifetime of treating me like a rat, my mother-in-law was going to dance to my tune. Faking a trembling voice, I slowly recited an address, but it wasn't mine. It was the address of the apartment where my husband Mark had not only built a second life with his mistress, but had also gotten her pregnant. The person who opened the door wasn't me, her daughter-in-law, but a strange woman with an enormous belly, and behind her my husband in an undershirt caught in the middle of a shocking three-way confrontation. What kind of screams and laments would echo in that house? Before we begin, if you like this story, hit the like button. May your days be filled with blessings. What exactly is marriage? I think I've spent the last 7 years of my life desperately trying to find an answer. I married for love, but over time I realized that married life seemed to consist more of enduring out of loyalty and the responsibility of raising children than for love itself. I'm a normal working mother, with a good career and 2 children I'm raising in an exemplary manner. Although a burning love no longer existed between my husband and me, I firmly believed we were like partners in battle. Fighting together against the world's adversities, we considered ourselves partners who, as a dual-income couple, understood each other's struggles and protected our home. However, when our marriage, not yet a decade old, reached its 6th year, my faith began to crumble. It all started with Mark's supposed voluntary overtime and company dinners. With the excuse of having more work, he started coming home later and later, to the point where he began sacrificing even his weekends to go out. At first, I tried to understand, thinking he needed an outlet for work stress, feeling sorry for him as he worked himself to the bone for the family. I made an effort to take care of him, preparing special meals and giving him vitamins, but his outings weren't just about releasing stress. One day, he announced he had joined the company's men's softball league and started waking up at dawn every weekend to get ready. I couldn't object to him taking care of his health, and I thought a little exercise would give him more vitality, so I gave him my blessing. I never imagined that this would be the beginning of all our problems. Normally, when someone plays in a men's softball league, they leave early, play for a bit, and come home to rest around lunchtime, right? But Mark would leave at dawn and not return until the sun had completely set day after day. If I asked him why he spent the whole day playing softball, his excuse was that he stayed for lunch with his teammates. Then they would go for a drink, and after that, maybe to a sports bar. Even though I, exhausted from single-handedly raising the kids, begged him to at least play with them a little on the weekends, he turned a deaf ear. What's more, he would get angry, calling me a narrow-minded woman and arguing that maintaining social contacts was crucial for his professional life. I should have realized then that the balance of our marriage was already breaking. I should have suspected that it wasn't just a passion for sports, but a desire to escape from his home. But I was so stupid that I trusted him. It was a sunny Saturday morning. The kids had been begging all week to go to the amusement park with their father. I tried to hold Mark back before he left, using the children as an excuse. He was in front of the mirror, absorbed in fixing his sports uniform. I left the children's breakfast half finished and cautiously approached him. "Honey, the kids are dying to go to Six Flags. Couldn't you come back a little earlier today?" Enough. Before I could finish, he frowned, and without taking his eyes off his reflection, snapped at me. "Can't you stand to see me rest a little on the weekend after a whole week of putting up with the office? Besides, we have a team lunch after the game. I can't come back early." I felt a pang of disappointment, but with the children there, I held back and tried again with kind words. "No one told you not to go. I'm just asking you to come back for lunch, because the kids want to play with you. You were gone all day last weekend, too." While spritzing himself with a strong cologne, he shot me a defiant look. In that instant, it struck me as strangely odd that someone going to play sports would douse himself in cologne like that. "Seriously, you won't even let me breathe." "I'm not partying. I'm networking and building contacts. Stop lecturing me." Mark slammed the door and left, leaving me standing there staring at the closed door. The children, frightened by seeing their father leave angry, put down their spoons and glanced at me. Seeing them, I felt a tightness in my chest, a mixture of sadness and frustration that brought tears to my eyes. I wasn't asking for much, just a kind word. A moment where he would look his children in the eyes and smile at them. Just that would have been enough for me. But he treated us like a nuisance and preferred to spend his time away. That night, Mark didn't return until almost midnight. Although he supposedly came from playing sports, his face was fresh, and his clothes smelled of a strange mixture of fabric softener and an unknown perfume. To top it off, he was humming a song in a very good mood. When I looked at him from the couch where I was watching TV, he was startled and cleared his throat. "Oh, you're still up. I thought you'd be tired." Avoiding my gaze, he tried to sneak into the bedroom. I asked him as he turned his back. "You say you're coming from sports, but you don't smell like sweat. Did you go to a sauna?" He stopped at the bedroom door and with an exaggerated gesture shrugged. "Of course. The guys and I went to sweat it out a bit. It felt great. I'm exhausted. I'm going to bed." He fled into the room and closed the door. In that precise moment, I felt as if an alarm went off in my head. They say a woman's intuition is a formidable thing, and my moment had arrived. Thinking back, there was more than one strange detail. The money he asked for the softball team fee was progressively increasing, and he often asked for new clothes. At the time, I thought it was to have clean changes, and bought them without hesitation. But now I realize how naive I was. After Mark fell asleep, I tiptoed into the bedroom. Seeing him in bed snoring, I felt a strange sense of alienation. Was this the hard-working family man I knew? As I picked up the clothes he had taken off, I heard a crinkling sound in his pants pocket. I put my hand in and pulled out a crumpled receipt. It was from a 2 4-hour convenience store. Reading the items, I couldn't believe my eyes. 2 chocolate milkshakes and a pair of women's pantyhose. I felt as if I had been hit over the head. Mark hated sweets. He never touched a chocolate milkshake. And besides, what reason could he have to buy women's pantyhose for someone who was supposedly going to play softball? My hands were shaking and my heart was beating as if it would burst. I tried to convince myself it was a misunderstanding, that maybe someone had asked him for a favor, but the bad feeling wouldn't go away. Looking at my husband's sleeping face, I asked in a whisper, "What the hell are you doing?" It was a question without an answer. But in my heart, the seed of suspicion had begun to sprout. I don't know how much my hands were trembling. The expression, "you reap what you sow," seemed made for me. I put the receipt back in his pocket and went out to the living room. I sat on the couch in the dark in a state of shock. Now that I was facing a reality I had only seen in soap operas, I couldn't even cry. Whether it was from anger, desolation, or disbelief at the situation, I only felt a tightness in my chest. This was marriage. Promising each other trust, support, and a life together, only to so easily look the other way. I didn't sleep a wink that night. At dawn, I made a decision. I would not stand by idly like a fool. I swore I would uncover the truth with my own eyes. If Mark was really cheating on me, I would not forgive him. Never. Because my life was mine, and I had to protect it. I heard Mark get up and go to the bathroom as if nothing had happened. I started making breakfast. Though I was burning with rage inside, on the outside, I had to act completely normal. Mark came out with a sleepy face, sat at the table, and asked for a glass of water. I gave it to him, observing his expression. It was the same face as always, brazen and calm. Seeing him, I felt nauseous, but I held it in. "Did you have fun at softball yesterday? About the pantyhose, it seems like women play on your team too." At my offhand comment, Mark, who was drinking water, choked and turned beet red. I didn't miss how his eyes full of panic betrayed his nervousness. "What are you talking about? How am I going to play softball with women?" "Don't talk nonsense and give me my breakfast." He tried to cover it up by shouting. But I was already sure he was lying. Remembering it now makes me laugh. To think he believed he could deceive me with such a clumsy lie makes me see how pathetic he was. But at that moment, the betrayal weighed more heavily than the laughter. We had been together for almost 10 years. How could he deceive me so brazenly? I couldn't understand it. It gave me chills to think if I really knew the person I was living with. I served him his plate and said coldly, "Eat up. Between work and softball, you must need a lot of strength." He didn't answer. He just wolfed down the food. Watching him eat with a frown as if he were about to choke made my stomach turn. From that day on, I started watching him. I observed his every move and waited for the opportunity to figure out his phone's password. Although I was terrified of opening Pandora's box, I couldn't keep pretending nothing was wrong. My life and the future of my children were at stake. Mark continued to go out on weekends with the softball excuse, and I quietly sharpened my knives, vowing that sooner or later I would catch him and then I wouldn't forgive him. I couldn't yet imagine the origin of the storm brewing over our family, nor what awaited me at the end of it all. I had only a glimmer of hope that his strange outings were a temporary rough patch, but it didn't take me long to realize that reality is much crueler than any soap opera. From the day I started suspecting Mark's behavior, all my senses were on high alert, fixed on him. Like a predator stalking its prey, I began to watch his every move. One day, when I went down to his car to get something for my son, I felt a chill as I opened the passenger door. The seat, which was normally in an upright position, was completely reclined. Besides our family, no one else got in his car. Who could have left it like that? A dreadful idea crossed my mind, and though my hands trembled, I tried to stay calm and checked the GPS search history. Mark, who had always been careless and messy, had deleted it completely. If he was supposedly going to the softball field every weekend, why did he need to delete the history? But that wasn't all. Hoping to find something, I turned on the dash cam only to discover that the memory card was missing. It was as if he had made a point of meticulously erasing any trace of his wanderings. My heart was pounding, and my mind went blank. I had to suppress the urge to go and demand an explanation right then and there. Without proof, all I would achieve is him treating me like a jealous, paranoid wife. When I got back home, I continued to watch him, and his behavior was a joke. The phone, which he used to leave lying around anywhere, he now protected as if it were a treasure, never letting it out of his sight for a second. He took it to the bathroom, to the shower, and to bed. He hid it under the pillow or placed it face down. Seeing him maintain this top-secret security seemed ridiculous and comical at the same time. If I tried to get close to ask him something, he would jump and instantly turn off the screen. It was a situation that was driving me crazy. And then the decisive opportunity arrived. One night, Mark came home completely drunk from a company dinner. Normally, he would have gotten a good scolding, but that day, I felt it was my moment. He collapsed on the living room couch unconscious. I took advantage of his state to use his fingerprint to unlock the phone. It was time to open Pandora's box. With trembling hands, I checked his call history and messages. It was filled with one name: Mr. Roberts. For a superior at work, the frequency of contact was excessive. Intrigued, I opened the conversation and couldn't believe what I saw. The screen was filled with affectionate messages that didn't fit at all with how one would treat a boss. "Honey, today was incredible. I miss you already. I love you, my love." As I read the conversation, I felt nauseous, and my blood boiled. The betrayal I felt upon discovering he had disguised his lover's name, as if it were a work colleague, is indescribable. From the tone and the emojis, she seemed to be a rather young woman. It seemed ludicrous that having an affair with someone much younger, he had been deceiving me with such flimsy excuses. All his nights of overtime and company dinners had been to fool around with that woman. I was dying to wake him up and slap him, but I restrained myself. I took pictures of all his phone screens with mine and put his phone back where it was. I spent the night awake, sharpening the knife of my revenge. The next morning, Mark woke up as if nothing had happened and asked for something for his hangover. Seeing him complain about his headache made me want to smash the plate on his face, but I served him breakfast completely naturally, and as if nothing, I asked, "Did you have fun at the dinner last night? Looks like you were with Mr. Roberts until late." Hearing me, he startled, dropped his spoon, and with wide eyes replied, "Yeah, well, you know. The boss got carried away talking and we lost track of time." What a headache. His ability to lie so naturally gave me chills. I laughed to myself and delivered the final blow. "And you're going to softball again this weekend. You could play with the kids a little this week, don't you think?" As if waiting for it, he raised his hands and got serious. "I can't miss this week. There's an important game. I'm the captain. I have to go no matter what. I'll play with them when I get back." His shameless lie left me speechless, but I pretended to accept it and let him go. The weekend arrived and Mark, humming a song, put on his softball gear and walked out the door. As soon as he left, I called a good friend. Jessica told her the situation and asked for her help. My friend, upon hearing me, became furious and wanted to go find him right then, but I calmed her down. We left the kids with my parents, and in my friend's car, so Mark wouldn't recognize mine, we started following him. As expected, his car didn't head towards the softball field, but in a completely opposite direction. He left our neighborhood and entered the streets of an unknown residential area, stopping in front of an apartment building. Shortly after, a young, well-dressed woman came out of the entrance. Mark got out of the car, ran to her, and opened the door for her as if she were a princess. Seeing him treat her with such care made me want to vomit. It was her, the so-called Mr. Roberts from his phone. Mark, with a radiant smile, buckled her seatbelt, a gesture of kindness that, to me, who had to remind him even to bring me a glass of water, seemed like a mockery. The couple's car sped down the road, probably for a drive in the suburbs. My friend and I followed them at a safe distance. They stopped at a famous restaurant and went in, arm in arm. Seeing their backs broke me inside. My children waiting all weekend to play with their father, and meanwhile he's laughing and on dates with another woman. I should have realized then that I had crossed a point of no return. I was convinced this wasn't a simple affair, but a full-blown double life. My friend wanted to go in and drag her out by her hair, but I shook my head. We didn't have enough proof. I needed a decisive blow, something irrefutable. So I held on and waited for them to finish eating. In the car, watching them, my eyes filled with tears. Is this why I got married? For a man like this to betray my 10 years of youth? But I quickly composed myself. Crying was a luxury. If I cried, I lost. I swore I would make those two cry tears of blood. After leaving the restaurant, they went back to the car and headed to a coffee shop with a view. They kissed, they hugged. It was a spectacle. As I photographed their happiness as if they were the only lovers in the world, I felt my heart grow cold. Their date lasted until sunset. In the car, my friend and I ate sandwiches while we watched them, and I was burning inside. My friend couldn't stop insulting them. What a pair of scumbags. They're really putting on a show. But strangely, I felt calmer. I had overcome the rage and reached a new state of mind. After dinner, they left arm in arm like newlyweds and got in the car. Their destination was a discreet hotel on the outskirts of town. Although I had feared it, seeing them enter such an establishment brought a bitter laugh to my lips. The man who on our wedding anniversary stayed home because he was tired was now overflowing with energy for another woman. From my friend's car, I photographed every moment. Their entry into the hotel parking lot, how they got out of the car, hugged and entered the building. My hands were shaking, but I pressed the shutter button again, and again my heart about to burst but holding it in. This was the definitive blow I wanted. I had enough proof now. My friend insisted on going in and making a scene, but I refused. If I lost my temper, the only one who would make a fool of herself would be me. I had to be colder, crueler. I told her we should go. When I got home, I put the kids to bed and waited for Mark on the couch. The clock passed midnight, and he didn't appear. At 2 inches the morning, I heard the sound of the lock. He stumbled in, pretending to be drunk, but I knew it was pure theater. The sensor light in the hallway illuminated his surprised face. He froze when he saw me sitting in the living room. "You're not asleep. Why are you sitting in the dark? I thought you were a ghost." He tried to play it cool and walked towards the bedroom. With a glacial voice, I stopped him. "Sit down for a moment. We need to talk." He stopped but tried to avoid the conversation with the excuse of being tired. "I'm really tired today. Let's talk tomorrow." The game and the celebration wiped me out. The game. Don't make me laugh, I thought. I grabbed my phone. "Stop talking nonsense and sit down." My tone of voice forced him to sit on the couch opposite me, though with an arrogant attitude, legs crossed, that infuriated me. Without a word, I sent the photos I had taken during the day to his phone. The notification sounded, and with an annoyed gesture, he looked at his phone. An instant later, his face turned pale as a sheet. I clearly saw his expression freeze. The photos of him embracing his lover in front of the hotel, feeding her at the restaurant, kissing in the car, appeared one after another on the screen. His hands trembled so much he almost dropped the phone. His dilated pupils and trembling lips were a sight to behold. "What is this? Have you been following me?" He jumped up and in a display of audacity started yelling at me, forgetting his own infidelity to accuse me of spying. His cynicism left me speechless, and I let out a bitter laugh. "Following you? Yes, I have. So what? What did you expect me to do? Sit on my hands while the man who says he's going to play softball is busy going in and out of hotels with another woman?" I looked him straight in the eyes. Defiant, flustered, he started babbling nonsensical excuses. "No, it's not what it looks like. She's just a friend. Don't misunderstand. Besides, this is a crime. Why are you spying on me? A friend you go to a hotel with, and that friend is the so-called Mr. Roberts cheating on me with a 20-something and using a boss as a cover." At the mention of his lover's age, he fell silent. He knew he had no escape. He collapsed onto the couch, holding his head, and suddenly changed tactics, adopting a defiant attitude. "So what? I have a lover. So what? Have you ever lacked for anything? I bring money home. I take care of the kids. I've done it all." A man can make a mistake. Was it so necessary for you to bring it all to light? His nerve was unbelievable. He was the one who cheated, and now he was yelling at me. That I hadn't lacked anything. It was the last straw. A mistake. You sound so sure. It seems you really love her. My sarcastic tone infuriated him, and with a red face he shouted, "Yes, I love her. I am 1,000 times happier with her than with you. She understands and respects me. She's not like you who only knows how to complain." At that moment, something inside me broke. To confess in front of his wife of 10 years that he loved another woman was enough to drive someone mad. My body trembled with rage and betrayal, but I responded as calmly as possible. "All right. If you love her so much, I'll give you a divorce. But on one condition." Hearing the word divorce, his eyes lit up, but at the mention of the condition, he became guarded again. "Condition? What condition? Bring her here. I want a three-way meeting to end this once and for all. I want to see that tramp's face." Hearing me, he sprang up, refusing outright. "No, absolutely not. She needs peace and quiet right now. If she sees you, she'll get upset and something serious could happen." "Peace and quiet? What are you talking about?" I snapped. "What kind of peace and quiet does a woman who sleeps with a married man need? Is she pregnant or something?" My random comment made him turn white as a sheet. "No, it's not." He said nothing. His reaction confirmed it. What I feared had come true. "She's really pregnant. Speak up. Now." With my icy voice, he lowered his head and answered in a whisper. "Yes, 5 months. So please don't bother her. It's my fault. Just give me the divorce. I'm begging you." For the child's sake, he knelt and began to plead. Seeing him beg me to protect his lover and their future child made me feel a mixture of disgust and misery. And my children, didn't he think about the harm it would do them to know their father not only had an affair, but had started another family and was expecting another child? He only cared about her. I hated him with all my strength. I should have realized then that he had renounced his humanity. He was worse than a beast. For the child's sake. Which child? The one that woman is carrying. Our children don't matter to you. You don't care about turning them into children of divorced parents, but hers is important," I screamed, grabbing him by the shirt collar and shaking him. He said nothing, just hung his head like a convict awaiting his sentence. But I wasn't going to give in so easily. If I divorced him just like that, they would be happy, and I couldn't allow that. I leaned into his ear and whispered, "Don't even dream of it. I won't give you a divorce. I will make sure that child you had on the side can never bear your last name. I will condemn him to live as a bastard. Let's see how far we get." Hearing me, he looked at me with eyes full of terror. He looked like he was seeing the devil, but I enjoyed his expression. This was just the beginning. I swore I would show him what hell is, and I gave a chilling smile. Mark, trembling, clung to my pants, but I pushed him away without mercy and locked myself in the bedroom. That night I heard his sobs from the living room, but I didn't move a muscle. I lay down and tried to sleep. My tears had dried up. All that remained was a cold thirst for revenge. His lover's pregnancy, in fact, had become my greatest weapon. With that child as a hostage, I could manipulate him. Although the shock of knowing the mistress was pregnant was immense, I decided I would not grant them a divorce so easily. Taking advantage of the fact that Mark, as the at-fault spouse, couldn't file for divorce in a way that would benefit him, I planned to torment him. I knew that if I didn't divorce him, his lover's child couldn't be registered with his last name without a complicated legal process. A child born outside of marriage requires an acknowledgement of paternity, and without the legal wife's consent or a divorce decree, the process becomes immensely complicated. Although he could legally force the acknowledgement, the process would be long and complex. Furthermore, I calculated that the mistress, knowing she had gotten involved with a married man, wouldn't dare to show her face publicly because of the social scandal it would cause. Mark pleaded with me, saying the child wasn't to blame, but I responded coldly, "Are your children to blame? I'm not going to let them grow up without a father at home," he insisted. "You're too cruel. What fault does the unborn child have? At least he should have a last name, right? Please, I beg you, give me the divorce." He clung to my pants, but I pushed him away with contempt. "Who said the child is to blame? The blame is yours. And that whore's who got into a married man's bed, and on top of that got pregnant. And now she dares to ask for a last name. Not in a million years. Over my dead body?" My words made him flush with anger, but he was left without arguments. He looked at me with eyes full of anger and frustration, and I enjoyed the spectacle. I returned his gaze and smiled sarcastically. feeling offended. Well, sue me if you want. Don't you know that the unfaithful spouse can't file for divorce on favorable terms? Consult a lawyer. You'll see how they tell you that you have nothing to stand on. He was speechless, clenching his fists and trembling with impotence. Seeing that he was getting nowhere, he became enraged, packed his bags, and went to his lover's house. Watching him leave with his things gave me a strange sense of liberation, as if a weight had been lifted off my shoulders, albeit with a bitter aftertaste. 10 years of marriage thrown away because my husband was going to live with another woman. Life was certainly absurd, but I had no time for regrets. Without him, the house was filled with an unexpected peace, and I enjoyed a quiet life with my children. I realized I could raise them perfectly well without him, and I started working hard and saving for our future. I invested in myself, something I had neglected to care for him, and spent more time with my children. On weekends, we would go to the park or eat out. At first, the children asked about their father, but over time, they got used to their new life with me. "Mom, when is Dad coming back? He's on a trip," my eldest would ask. Every time he did, I felt a knot in my stomach, but I would answer with a smile. "Dad has a lot of work and won't be able to come for a while, but don't worry, Mom will play with you twice as much." Fortunately, they were young and believed my words without noticing their father's absence too much. In fact, they seemed happier without him. They no longer had to witness our arguments. Seeing this, I realized how absent he had been as a father. Thanks to that, perhaps the children suffered less. So I spent quiet days with my children, meticulously preparing for the divorce. His voluntary departure gave me a great advantage for the alimony claim. I had plenty of evidence that he had abandoned the home to live with another woman. I consulted a lawyer and learned about the division of assets, investigating properties in his name, and preparing for child custody. While he was living happily with his mistress, I was preparing the plan to shatter his dream. One day, I received a call from him. 2 months after he left. I hesitated to answer, but curiosity about what he wanted got the better of me. "Hello," my voice sounded dry. He, without preamble, yelled at me. "Are you really going to keep this up? The baby is about to be born and you still haven't sorted out the papers. If he's born a bastard, will it be your responsibility?" His nerve was incredible. He had caused the problem and now he was blaming me. My responsibility. That's rich. Who told you to have kids all over the place? It was your decision. So now you deal with the consequences. Why do I have to take responsibility for your child? You and your lover figure it out. I snapped coldly and hung up. I stood in silence for a moment, thinking about how low he had sunk. The man I once loved and considered the father of my children had become a despicable being. But thanks to that, any feelings I had left for him vanished completely. I pulled myself together and returned to my routine. Working harder than ever and taking care of my children with all my strength, I had to prove that we could live perfectly well without him. I told people he was on a long business trip. I didn't want to air our dirty laundry, especially for the children's sake. Fortunately, everyone believed me, and I was able to continue my life as a working mother. Sometimes at night I felt lonely, but seeing my children sleep gave me strength. A mother has to be strong. So I lived day by day with a thirst for revenge, as my driving force, wishing for his unhappiness. Time passed, the seasons changed, and Christmas was approaching. At Christmas, I always went to my in-laws' house to spend the day cooking and cleaning tirelessly. I was curious to see what would happen this year. Since I hadn't told them Mark had left, my mother-in-law would assume I was coming. I planned to use these holidays to cut ties with them. Without my husband, I had no reason to continue playing the daughter-in-law. And even less so with him living with another woman. I waited for my mother-in-law's call. As expected, a few days before Christmas, her phone started ringing non-stop. At first I didn't answer, but her insistence made me finally pick up. "Girl, when are you coming for Christmas? I've bought a lot of food, so come early to help." My mother-in-law, Carol, oblivious to everything, spoke to me as always, as if I were her maid. Hearing her made me laugh bitterly. Her son living with another woman, and she expected her daughter-in-law to serve her. What audacity. "Carol, I can't make it this Christmas. I have a lot of work." I made an excuse. My mother-in-law's voice instantly sharpened. "What? You're not coming? What do you mean? If you don't come, who's going to prepare Christmas Eve dinner? Are you crazy?" She started screaming like a madwoman. I replied with annoyance. "Call your son. He'll know what to do. I'm in a hurry. I have to go." I said what I had to say and hung up. She called back, but I didn't answer. I felt immense relief, as if years of suffering and humiliation had been lifted from my shoulders. On Christmas Day, I went with the children to my parents' house to rest. I told them Mark was on a trip, although my mother seemed to suspect something, but she didn't ask. She just prepared a delicious meal for us. Eating the dishes cooked with my mother's love, my eyes filled with tears. I have a family that loves me. What do I have to worry about? I told myself to console myself. Meanwhile, at my in-laws' house, the chaos must have been total. Without a daughter-in-law and without news from her son, my mother-in-law must have been fuming. Just imagining it made me laugh. When I turned on my phone after the holidays, it was flooded with missed calls. My mother-in-law, my sister-in-law, who never called the whole family. Seeing so many notifications made me laugh. They never called to see how I was, only when they needed help. I took a deep breath and called my mother-in-law. She answered instantly. Where have you been? You don't show up for Christmas. You don't answer the phone. Have you lost your mind? Her screams pierced my ears. It was clear she was furious. I answered calmly. Carol, I already told you I couldn't go. I had work, and I wasn't feeling well. My words enraged her even more. You weren't feeling well. What an excuse. How shameful. Fine, Christmas is one thing, but you know that in a week, it's the anniversary of your husband's grandfather's passing, right? You have to come that day and fulfill your duties. If you don't come, I swear I won't be responsible for what happens. I couldn't believe it. Her son living with another woman, and I had to go prepare the memorial meal for them. To them, the daughter-in-law was just a servant. At that moment, something inside me broke. I wasn't going to put up with it anymore. It was time to put an end to it. Carol, I'm not celebrating any more anniversaries. I'm never going back there again. So, get that straight. Faced with my declaration of war, she was speechless for a moment. Then with a choked voice, she asked, What? What did you say? Are you insane? Yes, maybe I am insane. My husband has left home to live with another woman and you expect me to go to your house and cook. Doesn't that seem crazy to you? Well, it's over. Hearing me, she was in shock. After a long silence, she managed to articulate with a trembling voice. What did you say? That he left home with another woman, our son was unfaithful to you. Yes. He set up a love nest with a young, beautiful girl. It seems your son is such a good son that he kept it a secret from you, I replied sarcastically, enjoying her reaction. Lies, my son wouldn't do something like that. You're slandering him, she screamed. Although her voice betrayed a deep insecurity, I understood a mother defending her son, but blaming me for everything was intolerable. Whether it's slander or not, you can check for yourself. Aren't you curious to know where and how your son is living now? If you want, I can give you the address. I enjoyed her reaction, taking my time. She, unable to contain her fury, shouted, Don't you move. I'm coming to Chicago right now. You tried to ruin my son. Today, either you die or I do. She seemed ready to pack her bags and show up at my house that very instant. Knowing her impulsive character, she was perfectly capable. For me, it was the perfect opportunity. I could resolve the matter without getting my hands dirty. If she saw it all with her own eyes, my revenge would be even sweeter. As you wish, but I've moved. I'll send you the new address by text. I lied with complete tranquility and sent her the address of the mistress's apartment, the same one Mark had given me to send a package to. My mother-in-law must have left that very instant. The thought of what would happen in that house in a few hours gave me a perverse pleasure. I took the children to an indoor playground and played with them as if it were a normal weekend. But inside, I kept looking at the clock. She must have arrived by now. Has she rung the doorbell? Did they open the door? I was dying to have some popcorn and enjoy the show. My mother-in-law indeed showed up at the address I gave her. What happened there was told to me later, and it was so spectacular that my skin tingles, just imagining it. She rang the doorbell shouting, Girl, open the door, but the person who opened it wasn't me but a stranger with a huge belly. Imagine her surprise. She thought she had the wrong address, but at that moment she heard her son's voice from inside. Who is it? The scene was hellish. The pregnant woman in the doorway, her son in an undershirt behind her, and an apartment decorated like a newlywed's. Upon understanding the situation, my mother-in-law put her hand to her chest and collapsed. She, who had always boasted of ironclad health, couldn't bear her son's betrayal and the shocking scene of his infidelity. They took her to the emergency room, and after some time, unconscious upon waking, the first thing she said was, Bring me that whore. Her character was still intact. At night, my phone started ringing again. It was Mark, as expected. The chaos must have erupted after his mother's arrival. I ignored his calls. Dozens of missed calls and messages flooded my phone. Are you crazy? How could you give my mom my address? She fainted. Come fix this right now. I swear I'll kill you. Pick up the phone. I read his panicked and angry messages with a smile of satisfaction. Serves you right. What a show, I thought. I hummed a song while savoring every word. What face would my mother-in-law make seeing her son living with his pregnant mistress, the son she trusted so much, living with another woman and about to have a child? No wonder her blood pressure spiked. Late at night when the children were already asleep, I called him back. He answered instantly, screaming like a madman. What the hell is wrong with you? How could you give my mother this address? She's in the ER. Wow, what a shock she must have had, right? Since she insisted so much on me fulfilling my duties as a daughter-in-law, I thought I'd give her the opportunity to receive care from her new daughter-in-law. I don't know why you're mad, I replied with as much malice as possible. He, stammering with rage, could barely speak. How can you be like this? You're not human. My mother, what did she do to deserve this? Deserve isn't treating your daughter-in-law like a slave, her whole life deserving of something. Now, she's paying the consequences. If you're so worried, you take care of her. Good luck with that. I snapped coldly and hung up. I felt completely liberated, as if a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Although the news of her fainting worried me a little, I soon calmed down, thinking it was the result of her own actions. It was the price to pay for raising a son poorly and for mistreating his daughter-in-law. The ball was now in their court. My mother-in-law would hate her son for his betrayal, and the mistress would suffer her wrath. Mark would be trapped in the middle, living a hell, and I would simply watch the spectacle from a distance. Was there a more perfect revenge? The next morning I received a call from an unknown number. It was a nurse from the hospital. My mother-in-law was asking for me. She said she needed a family member. I responded firmly. I am not her family. Contact her son, and don't call me again. After hanging up, I thought she still doesn't get it. She thought I would go take care of her. The audacity. The idea that because she fainted, her daughter-in-law had an obligation to care for her disgusted me. I was no longer the daughter-in-law of that family, even though we were legally still married. We were strangers. In the afternoon, coming back from work, I saw familiar shoes in front of my door. They were Mark's. I had made the mistake of not changing the lock. When I entered, I saw him sitting on the couch with his head down. He seemed to have aged years in just a few months. When he saw me, he stood up and tried to approach. I, without taking off my shoes, glared at him. Get out. Now. My icy gaze stopped him in his tracks. In a barely audible voice, he said, "Honey, please. My mom is in the hospital and I can't go. And the other person is pregnant, she can't take care of her. Couldn't you go? I know I've done everything wrong. I'm begging you just this once." I couldn't believe it. What kind of brain did this man have? He cheats on me, leaves home with another woman, and now he expects me to take care of his mother. The mistress being pregnant couldn't, but I, being the same old fool, could. It seemed so absurd I couldn't even laugh. I took off a shoe and threw it at him. Are you insane? Are you even human? An animal has more decency than you. The mistress is pregnant and can't, so I have to wipe your mother's ass, not in a million years. Get out of here. The shoe hit him, but he said nothing, just stood there stunned. I, furious, locked myself in my room. I heard him banging on the door and pleading, but I ignored him. He finally gave up and left. I lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling. We're going to see this through to the end. Let's see who wins. I felt like crying, but I held it in. If I weakened, I lost. I repeated to myself that I had to be strong. All I had left was rage. To win this infernal war, I had to be tougher. I swore I would triumph and laugh in their faces. Forced to care for his mother alone, Mark started calling me to vent. Despite me having thrown him out the day before, he seemed not to have learned his lesson. His voice on the other end of the phone was a pathetic lament. "Emily, don't you have a heart? Mom is very sick, and you haven't even bothered to visit. You have to have some decency. After 10 years as a daughter-in-law, have you become this cold?" Mark, completely forgetting his own fault, tried to paint me as the worst daughter-in-law in the world. His audacity made my blood boil, but I answered calmly, "Daughter-in-law, I stopped being that a long time ago. And if she's so sick, you take care of her with all your love. Why are you taking it out on me? I can't even go to work because I'm stuck with her at the hospital. You have more time. You could at least come at night." The work excuse was the last straw. He had time for a double life, but not to care for his mother. "Why do I have to take care of your mother and your brilliant new girlfriend? Wasn't she crazy about playing daughter-in-law? Tell her it's her chance to score points." At the mention of the mistress, he was speechless, stammering with rage. He knew perfectly well that if she set foot in the hospital, his mother would greet her with the IV stand in her hand. He didn't even dare to suggest it to her. I enjoyed picking at his wound and hung up. I saw the dozens of missed calls and gave a cold smile. This was just the beginning. The pain they were about to suffer was nothing compared to my last 10 years. The next day I received a call from an unknown number. It was my mother-in-law. She seemed to have recovered a bit. Her voice wasn't as stentorian, but it was still loaded with venom. I took a deep breath and answered, "Hello. You did it on purpose, didn't you? You gave me that address to mess with me," she snapped without preamble. Not an apology, not a hint of remorse, just reproaches. It seemed incredible to me, unable to control her own son, and it was the daughter-in-law's fault. That bad habit she wouldn't lose even in the grave. On purpose, you insisted on my duties as a daughter-in-law, so I simply showed you where your new daughter-in-law was. How did you like the visit? Your son is very talented. He sets up a love nest with a young girl and even gets her pregnant. My sarcasm left her breathless. Are you done yet? A man can make a mistake, and for that you're going to push your mother-in-law to the brink of death. Are you even human? A mistake. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. That her son had a double life and a child out of wedlock was a simple mistake. She completely forgot the pain he had caused me. She only cared about protecting her son. It made my stomach churn. A mistake. Having a double life for over a year and having a child is a mistake. Well, then maybe I'll make the mistake of abandoning you to your fate. What, you insolent brat, come to the hospital right now and beg for forgiveness on your knees. She still didn't understand the situation and was yelling at me. I realized it was pointless to keep talking to them. They were irrational. Carol, wake up. I am no longer the daughter-in-law of that house. I am going to divorce your son, so you two be very happy. Oh, and the new daughter-in-law and the grandchild too, of course. Divorce. Who's going to give you a divorce? You won't get divorced even if you're dead. You're not leaving this family until you die. She screamed like a madwoman, refusing the divorce. She probably feared that with the divorce her son would lose assets in the division and alimony. Her selfishness disgusted me. I replied coldly, "Then we'll go to court. I have more than enough evidence of your son's infidelity. See you in court, and don't call again. I'm going to block you." I hung up just as she was about to scream something else, and blocked her number. My hands were shaking. I didn't know if it was from the rage or the accumulated pain finally coming to light. But I composed myself. I couldn't falter. I had to show them that I could live happily without them. A few days later, Mark contacted me again, this time with a long text message. It was unbelievable. He informed me that since his mother had been discharged but couldn't care for herself, he was bringing her to live at our house. The mistress's house was, according to him, too small and uncomfortable. They were the epitome of selfishness and audacity. I didn't respond and ignored him. I had changed the locks a while ago. Coming home from work, I found them at my front door with a pile of bags. Since they couldn't get in, they were waiting on the landing. When she saw me, my mother-in-law threatened me with her cane. "What are you waiting for to open up? What a way to treat your mother-in-law, leaving her on the street." Mark by her side didn't know where to look. I looked at them with my arms crossed in disbelief. "What are you doing here, in someone else's house?" "Someone else's house. Why is it someone else's house?" "This house is in my son's name," she proclaimed, convinced of her right. "But we bought this house with the money my parents gave me for the wedding, my savings, and a mortgage. It belonged to both of us, and Mark's share was minimal. She, of course, didn't know that. Carol, this house is in my name too. And since your son is the at-fault spouse in the event of a divorce, it's most likely that I'll get it. So stop making a scene at my door and leave." At-fault spouse. A man can have an affair. You as a woman have so little understanding. My mother-in-law seemed to be from another era. It wasn't even worth arguing with her about her outdated ideas. This isn't the last century. Besides, if we're going there, the one who has failed in his duties is your son. Adultery, abandonment of family. Or not. By refuting her point by point, she was left speechless and started hitting Mark. "Useless. It's your fault we're in this mess. And I raised you with so much care." Mark, dodging the blows, looked at me pleadingly, asking me to open the door. I didn't move a muscle. I took out my phone and threatened to call the police. "If you don't leave right now, I'm calling the police for trespassing. If you don't want to be embarrassed in front of the whole neighborhood, leave quietly." Hearing the word police, my mother-in-law got scared. She cared too much about what others would think. In the end, she left leaning on Mark, but not before cursing me. "You'll see, karma will get you back." Her hateful gaze followed me until the elevator door closed, but I felt a great relief. It's over. They won't manipulate me anymore. Upon entering the house and closing the door, my legs gave out and I collapsed. The accumulated tension was released in the form of tears, but they were not of sadness but of liberation, of pride for having stood up for myself. I looked in the mirror and told myself, "You did well. Very well. You've done nothing wrong." That night, for the first time in a long time, I slept deeply without nightmares. The next morning, I had a message from Mark. He had taken his mother to the mistress's house. A small house, a pregnant mistress, a disabled mother-in-law, and an indecisive husband. Hell on earth. Knowing my mother-in-law's character, she wouldn't leave the mistress in peace, and the other young and with a strong character wouldn't stay silent. The show was set to begin. I read the message, smiled, and deleted it. Their unhappiness would from now on be my happiness. A few days must have passed since my mother-in-law, after her discharge, settled into the mistress's house. Mark's phone wouldn't stop ringing. At first I ignored it, but his insistence was such that I eventually answered. His voice on the other end sounded completely defeated. "Honey, please save me." Save you from what, although I could perfectly imagine it. Trapped between his mother and his mistress, the situation must have been unbearable. "What's wrong? Weren't you living happily with your beloved and now with your mother, playing the good son?" "How nice, right?" I said sarcastically. He sighed and began to vent. "You can't even imagine. Mom complains all day long, and Ashley with the pregnancy is super irritable and won't stop screaming. I'm going crazy. Couldn't you come and get Mom? I know it's my fault. Please help me just this once." I couldn't believe it. I had served him the opportunity to pay for his infidelity on a silver platter, and now he was complaining that he couldn't take it anymore. I snapped at him coldly. "No, why would I? This is the path you chose. Didn't you abandon the children and me to go with her? Well, now face the consequences. Don't try to unload your problems on me." "But Ashley is pregnant. She can't handle everything. Couldn't you take care of Mom? I'll make it up to you." Make it up to me. The idea that my pain could be cured with his miserable money disgusted me. I refused flatly. "What compensation? Not even with all the money in the world could you repair the damage you've done to me. And whether the mistress is overwhelmed or not is not my problem. In fact, I'm glad. You reap what you sow." He didn't know what to say. He just stammered my name, pleading. Hearing his pitiful voice gave me a strange satisfaction, but also bitterness. The man I once trusted had fallen so low. I felt it wasn't worth listening to him anymore and hung up. A few days later, coming home from work, I saw a familiar figure at the building's entrance. It was Mark, but his appearance was deplorable. Disheveled with several days' worth of beard, he looked like a vagrant. When he saw me, he approached and tried to take my hand. I pulled it away in disgust. "What are you doing? Get away from me." "Honey, let me in. Just for a few days. I can't take it in that house anymore. My mother and Ashley fight all day and they blame me for everything." "Save me, please," he begged with teary eyes. The war between the mother-in-law and the pseudo-daughter-in-law must have been epic. But it didn't move me. It was the fruit of his actions. "You can't take it anymore. Then die. Why are you coming to cry to me? You and that whore sought this life. If you couldn't handle it, you shouldn't have started." I spoke to him harshly and tried to enter the building. He stood in my way and knelt regardless of the neighbors' stares. I was wrong. It won't happen again. "I'll leave Ashley. I'll take my mother to a nursing home. Please forgive me. Do it for the children." Using the children as an excuse was the final straw. The man who had abandoned them now dared to mention them. With the tip of my heel, I kicked him in the shin. He screamed in pain and fell to the ground. "Trash. How dare you mention the children? Do you even have the right to call yourself a father? You are not their father. Get out of here. If I see you again, I'll call the police." I screamed beside myself and called the building manager. As the manager led him away, he was still shouting my name, but I entered without looking back. At home, my anger wouldn't subside. Suddenly, I felt like crying. Why did I have to go through all of this? But I composed myself. I couldn't falter. I had to see their destruction through to the end. After that, the calls from Mark and the mistress didn't stop. One day, the mistress herself called me. With incredible nerve, she asked me to give him the divorce so she could register the child with his father's last name. Trapped. "Hi, could you divorce Mark? The baby is due soon and he can't grow up without a father. As a woman, you should understand me." Her calling me a fellow woman seemed like a mockery. Who do you think you are to talk to me like that? And with what face do you call me? After stealing my husband and getting pregnant by him, have you lost your mind? Don't talk to me like that. Mark told me he only loved me, that your marriage was just a piece of paper. So let him go. Be civilized. Her arrogance was unbelievable. Her speech about love seemed ridiculous to me. Sure, if you love each other so much, give him your last name. Register him as the child of a single mother. Why are you so insistent that he carry my husband's last name? You knew he was a married man. You should have accepted the consequences. What? A single mother. You're a harpy. What's the child's fault? She started yelling excitedly. I enjoyed her reaction and replied calmly. The fault is yours. The fault is yours, and the child you're carrying is nothing more than proof of your infidelity. How dare you play the victim? You will carry the label of the other woman for the rest of your life. It's your destiny. I told her everything I thought and hung up, blocking her number. I felt immense relief, as if my words had avenged years of suffering. Time passed, and I found out the mistress had given birth. Mark contacted me again, begging for the divorce so he could register the child. I ignored him. As long as we were married, his out-of-wedlock child couldn't be registered without a paternity acknowledgement process that included DNA tests and other complicated procedures. By not granting him the divorce, the process would be indefinitely prolonged. In the end, due to the legal registration deadline, the mistress had to register the child with her own last name, as the child of a single mother. Although Mark could later acknowledge him and change his last name, his record would always bear the mark of being born out of wedlock. I imagined their desperation upon finding out and enjoyed the moment. It was time. After crushing them, it was time to get my life back. I hired a lawyer and filed for divorce, claiming alimony and the division of assets. Since he was the at-fault spouse, the trial was favorable for me. I presented all the evidence of his infidelity, his abandonment of the home, and his cohabitation with the mistress. The court ordered him to pay me an indemnity of $30,000 and to grant me ownership of the apartment. Custody of the children, of course, was given to me. Mark threatened to appeal, but with no money for lawyers, and with such conclusive evidence, he eventually gave up. I finally got divorced, kept the house, and received financial compensation. I also sued the mistress and won. Although she declared insolvency, I garnished her wages until I collected every last cent. It wasn't about the money. It was about the principle. Leaving the courthouse, the sky was incredibly clear, as if blessing my future. The feeling of having freed myself from a toxic relationship and of being the master of my own life filled me with emotion. I celebrated the victory with my children with a special dinner. "Mom, is today a special day?" they asked me. I smiled and replied, "Yes, it's the day Mom was born again, and the day our family will be even happier." Although they didn't understand the meaning, they smiled, seeing me happy. Seeing their smiles, I promised myself never to let them suffer again, and to live with strength and pride. They say time heals all wounds, and it's true. Over the course of 2 seasons, our new family of 3 found a surprising stability. At first, the children asked about their father. Instead of lying to them, I explained the situation honestly at their level. Daddy and Mommy have decided to live separately, but our love for you hasn't changed. Mommy will play with you twice as much for Daddy too. Although it was hard for them at first, now on weekends, they spend their time planning what we'll do together. It seems they prefer a mother who rides bikes and takes them out to eat over a father who came home smelling of alcohol or spent the whole day playing softball. On the other hand, the news I get about them is, as expected, disastrous. The neighborhood is small and rumors fly. What they tell me is worthy of a soap opera. My ex-mother-in-law, consumed by bitterness, is bedridden. The mistress apparently takes advantage of her new mother status to not lift a finger and treats the old woman like a servant. She yells things at her like, "Carol, stop snoring, you're waking up the baby." Or if my wrists get ruined because I don't rest, it'll be your fault. She spends her days ordering takeout and using my ex-mother-in-law's credit card. Karma, without a doubt. The woman who for her entire life had treated her daughter-in-law like a servant now lives in fear of the mistress. In the end, she couldn't take it anymore and fled to her hometown. But there, with no one to care for her, she ended up in a nursing home. The son she adored so much hasn't paid her the slightest attention, and she has ended up abandoned in a cold asylum. What a sad end. Meanwhile, her son, who was her pride and joy, is drowning in debt between his garnished wages and the loan to pay me the indemnity. He spends his days drinking. At night, between the baby's crying and the mistress's screams, his house is a hell. He tells her she ruined his life. Their fights are so intense that even the police have had to intervene. A rather pathetic end for a love story that destroyed a family. Hearing these stories makes me feel more pity than laughter. If they were going to destroy everything for their love, at least it should have gone well for them. One late night, the phone rang. An unknown number. It was my ex-husband, completely drunk. I had blocked his number, but he called from another. "Honey, I'm a mess. My mom's in the home. My house is a hell. Life was so good with you." "I was an idiot," he babbled. Maybe before I would have softened. Now his whining just sounds like noise to me. Pay the child support on time. If you're late, I'll garnish more. And if you ever call me again, I'll report you for harassment. I snapped without hesitation and hung up. After hanging up, I poured myself a glass of wine. That was the man I had lived with for 10 years. For that insignificant being I had cried so many nights. I laughed to myself. For me, he was no longer even the object of my anger, just an unfortunate piece of my past. At work, things are going wonderfully. By solving my personal problems, I was able to focus more on my career, and I've been promoted to team leader. My colleagues tell me I look happier. They ask what happened. I reply with pride. I've shed a huge weight and I feel like I can fly. Now, after work, I have dinner with my children, and on weekends, I enjoy my hobbies. Dedicating time to myself, I've started saving for a trip abroad, something that was unthinkable before. Next year, we plan to go to Europe. I am happy being myself, not someone's wife or someone's daughter-in-law. Sometimes before sleeping, I think about the past. What would have happened if I had ignored my husband's infidelity? I probably would have been consumed by doubt and anxiety, and would have subjected my children to the trauma of seeing their parents constantly argue. I am proud to have had the courage to face the truth and to have removed the tumor at its root. Although I now carry the label of divorcee, I don't see it as a mark of failure, but as a medal I won for defending my own life. Wounds heal, and the skin regenerates. My children and I are stronger. What is marriage? I searched for the answer for a long time, but I realized there is no single answer. But one thing is certain. If you don't love yourself, you can't be happy with anyone. I believed that sacrificing myself for my husband and his family was a virtue, but I was wrong. I have learned the hard way that my happiness is the key to my children's happiness and for my world to shine. If anyone is suffering from a partner's betrayal or mistreatment from their in-laws, I dare to tell you, don't put up with it. You are valuable people. Don't be afraid and fight. After a long tunnel, there is always a bright light waiting. Like for me, the second act of my life has just begun. The protagonist is me, and the end of this drama will undoubtedly be a happy ending. Thank you for listening to my long story. I wish you all much happiness. What did you think of today's story? More dramatic than any soap opera. The betrayal of the husband she trusted and the shameless attitude of the mother-in-law had me on the edge of my seat, but our protagonist is incredible. She didn't crumble in a hellish situation, but with admirable clarity and intelligence took back the reins of her life. I was especially moved by her final sentence. The label of divorcee is not a mark of failure, but a medal I won for defending my own life. She has shown that the best revenge is to be happy, much happier than them. If anyone is going through a similar pain, I hope this story gives them a little courage. Don't forget that at the end of the tunnel, there is always a light. I sincerely wish that the second stage of her life shines with its own light, and that she creates many happy memories with her children. Leave your comments of support for her. They will surely comfort her. Thank you for staying with me until the end.